Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Success Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood. Very happy to have you join me today. I have another special guest that I'm going to introduce you to here in a hot second. But as usual, I'd like to mention my sponsor partner, the Chamber of St. Matthews, for being such an amazing group of people to be a part of. I'm very happy to be involved with them. As a business owner, if you are not involved in your local chamber, you're missing out because your local chamber offers a lot of opportunity. They are your best connectors in the neighborhood, if you will, not just for your own business, but even the friendships that you can make that will last a lifetime of the course of your business and then some. And a lot of that is, depending on what happens in your life and what happens in your business, you may need to make those connections for your next adventure. You just never know. Highly recommend getting involved in your area chamber. If you're not a part of them, come be a part of us. Love to have you join us. We have a lot of virtual options as well. That's just kind of how we've kept things up since the shutdown. So yeah, we've embraced a lot of change. Our culture is fantastic, which is another one of our selling points. We don't, I, I don't know who got it from who. I don't know if they, kind of adopted it from me because it just kept doing it. We take what we do very seriously, but ourselves not so much. We love to have fun in our chamber, and that's me too. Now, I have fun in my own way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not My version of fun is probably not yours. Just gonna say it. I like to go to conferences and get all motivated and inspired, and that's fun for me. Most people will be like, "What the hell are you thinking?" But that's just how much strategy and planning and higher business development jazzes me. And I love to talk about what jazzes my guests. And I hope that that energy that they're bringing and talking about what they love to do jazzes you to do the thing that you love to do. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my next guest. His name is Trevor Blondeel. Met him with the National Speaker Association. We are both speakers, and that's kind of just one element of our overall business. Trevor's been in manufacturing for a long time. He knows his stuff, and was very excited to get to talk about this segment of business because manufacturing tends to get, set aside and overlooked. Like you're just making things. Well, there's humans that are making things, and we get to talk about this aspect of manufacturing. And Trevor specializes in that. He works with those manufacturers to connect the top to the shop floor, which I love that, top to the shop floor. Over 25 years of working in that industry, and he's definitely passionate about developing those leaders that allow individuals and teams to reach their full potential, even in manufacturing. Like, let's not discount manufacturing is a huge industry for us here in the US, period, let alone across the world. They're always manufacturing something, making new things. I was excited to sit down and talk with Trevor, and I hope that you're going to get a lot out of this next interview. Please meet my friend, Trevor Blondeel. So, Trevor, thank you so much for being my live in my office guest for Small Business Success Talk.
Love a live recording.
This is going to be so fun. I haven't got to see you in a few weeks. You're one of my fellow peers in National Speaker Association. So that's how you and I know each
Yes.
other. And we've talked about this for a few months now. And you still owe me a purple pen.
I do. A whole pack of them.
So I want my listeners to get to know you, not just as a fellow speaker, but like what got you into doing what you do, and who do you focus on? Because I know you and I have talked about you talk with the manufacturing industry. So what what exactly do you do, and then how did you get there?
So I work with manufacturers to connect the top to the shop floor. The
Okay.
problem in manufacturing is disconnect because we have these great owners, general managers that have an engineering background often, and they're super smart people that get very excited about the success of the business and how it grows and the team that they have. And as we get caught up in our daily lives, we sometimes get disconnected to the people around us, and because we get focused and excited on the results. And for manufacturing, it's a lot around safety, quality, and productivity. When you focus on those, you can become disconnected. And we talk about miscommunication, but it's really connections the issue. And that that skill of relationships will never be replaced by any artificial intelligence or
Yeah,
technology
no,
development.
no.
So that's the space that we work in.
Nice. So tell me, how do you work in that space?
So through speaking as we speak our
Right.
fellow speakers, and then advising and coaching, specifically usually working with an owner or a general manager. And because I've been asked, I was, oh, so you don't do training for like frontline leaders? And I said, it's not that I don't, I do. It's an and. Gone into businesses to help them. And I learned very early on in my business that if we're training a group of the middle leadership, because so here's the story is that Trevor, come on in, need your help over here. These leaders here that they need to engage their teams more. And I'll say, well, who's who's engaging the leaders? Like who's engaging these frontline leaders? Well, managers, we're busy. We're good. Like we just need you to come in here and train these folks over here.
Uh,
And it's like,
sure.
okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit more, because if I come in and do some facilitation and develop some skills, and you're not necessarily reinforcing that, or maybe there's something else that's missing, then we just kind of build on the disconnect. Whereas if the highest level of the organization is committed to that type of development, whatever it is, then that's going to trickle down like a chocolate fountain across the organization.
Hold up. Chocolate fountain and manufacturing ticket. Although that's not OSHA.
No. Dipping the strawberry.
But you're right. Having that top down trickle effect of if the top leaders are bought into let's make this connection, then
Mhm.
everybody should follow suit, right?
Yes, yes. At minimum, it's the same language, right? It's just getting that same conversation going of what we expect, and that we're all can check in on each other and say, hey, we committed that we're going to start meetings on time, right? So then I can come in and it's easier to have that conversation because everyone's speaking that same language of respect for each other looks like showing up on time. I was almost late here because I had a couple last minute thoughts about this podcast recording today. So I called you, right? It's kind of like, I don't want to be late for Christy. So it's just the language that and the respect that we have for
Yeah.
each other. So it just kind of builds in that organization, is that if we can be connected, even in what we're doing as far as skill development, then that transcends better.
And I love that you're talking about getting everybody on the same page, on the same language, because your version of respect may be something different to somebody else.
Mm,
It generationally, backgrounds, the whole 9 yards.
absolutely.
And so how can we come together to make a common definition of what that means? Um, I've 'cause I've had those conversations before, especially around that word respect. Like my person, my team, my whatever doesn't respect me. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so what does that mean for you when you're asking like you're putting this word respect out there, but maybe that's not exactly what's happening here. Like something has triggered you. They did not actually disrespect you. They just didn't do something that your expectation
Hmm.
wasn't met. So getting them all on the same defined language is huge. That's a big deal for even manufacturing. So why is it important to do that in manufacturing? Because typically you would think outside looking in, if you've never worked in manufacturing and you're just a mom and pop place or you come from
Hmm.
corporate or you've been behind a desk all day, like the version of what you might think is you have worker bees and you have management and then the guy who gets to make the money. Like there might be that whole perception of how manufacturing works. So why is it important for all that to be connected?
But I was talking to a small business owner, and just about what they're expecting from their some of their staff. And it's like, hey, we're paying them. This is what it is. Uh, I don't see where the confusion is. I've told them exactly what they need to do. I'm kind of like, well, how's that working? Like if you're talking to me right now, right?
Right.
So but they were very passionate, right? In the fact of like to the point of just they're frustrated. They're is just they know what works, and we should just all just do this because I said it, right? It's kind of like
Look, I
okay,
get it. I am that person too.
and so what I kind of just talked about is that Trevor, I've told them 3 times, and they're still not doing this. It's kind of so let's think about that. So a monologue is just someone that's talking,
Yes.
and I talk a lot around dialogue, right? And in our businesses, we're focused on results, and we back that up. How do we get the results? By a certain behavior. So it's a behavior. It's how we're showing up. We get a repeatability, and when we make adjustments to get a better result in our behavior. But our behavior doesn't change because someone told us to change our behavior. The behavior changes when we start thinking different. But then we got to take that step back further. How do we change someone's thinking? It's through dialogue. So it's a two-way conversation, and it's about increasing your own skill on asking questions. And the question is not repeat back what I said. That's not the right question. Yeah, like
Honestly, one of the best, like we're talking about this, the best question I ever had was, "Who the hell do you think you are?" And my response at age 21 was, "Whoever you tell me to be."
So it's getting those open-ended questions that seeks to see what are you thinking about this, right? I'm going to throw out a topic, and then what's your thoughts on this, and how do you feel that will roll out? And one of my most humbling moments is that I was running a manufacturing plant, and we halfway through the day we have a call from corporate, and they want some different cycle time. So I pulled in all the supervisors and engineers, and I said, this is what you need, this is how to get it, and this is why we need it, and everybody good? Yeah. All right. So I went back to my desk, and then my admin assistant, who she actually just is more like a plant manager. She was the one really running the plant because she was super emotionally intelligent, Naomi. And she says, wow, you really pissed those guys off. And yeah, like I've been to all leadership training. We got a successful department. How is this possible? I woke up. I'm a good person with great intentions. I couldn't have possibly got this wrong. Go talk to my supervisor, Randy, and he's kind of looking perturbed and looking at the robots welding. He's got his hands in his pocket. His kind of head's down. His cap's pulled down. I'm like, Randy, how's this going? He's like, fine. I'm like really, how's it going? Like, you really want to know? You pulled us all in. We had a great start to the day. Everybody was focused. And then you just kind of drop this bomb of what's needed today and just kind of walk out. I thought, oh, Randy's confused. So I went and talked to a couple other leaders.
Oh, at this stage of life, did Trevor not have great listening?
Yes, they needed some dialogue. So we brought everybody back in the room, and we talked about, prioritization, and, what's the most important part to get done? Who has some of this other information already? What does this mean with a team? Just so much conversation. And I'll never forget it. It's one of the most significant emotional events of my career, because it was like, it's not about just giving solid direction. It's about seeking to understand. And there is such a skill to be developed in our own curiosity. And, just like using the questions like, what are your thoughts on that? Simple as that. You can just create some conversation.
Well, and the other key as a leader on the other side of that table is let them tell you their thoughts on that too. And if you're gonna sometimes not, it's not gonna be what you want to hear, but what you need to hear for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And I haven't figured out, like, for me, it was just, I just didn't know there was a different way, right? Like, I didn't know that if it was me and I need to change my own approach and develop my own skills in order to cascade the department's success, because how we show up impacts on how people feel, and how we make them feel determines the extent to which they can engage. So we really need to use that mirror when things aren't going well and see what could we do different.
It's funny that you say that because that's one of my not necessarily as big as big as an epiphany would be, but coming off of a Disney trip, right? How you feel determines the level of magic you're going to experience
Mhm.
and your willingness to pay for more magic. That's a whole marketing
Oh,
conversation.
yeah.
But being able to, have it is it Maya Angelou that had that quote of people don't care how much you know
Yes.
until they know how much you care? Is is that right?
Yeah, she's got so many, different ones. I don't know if she had that one exactly, but, yeah.
So
She
it's something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it's still very true. Like this is one of the most impactful things that I had ever learned about life in general
Mhm.
is how I show up affects other people.
Mm.
And I know the energy I can bring to a room or good or bad. So I try my best to use my energy for a force for good and not evil. So those days that I don't feel so hot, it's probably not good to be around people.
Yeah.
It's not safe.
Yeah, and that's that whole self-awareness. What type of energy are we bringing in? Right? Like this morning, I was listening to some of your awesome podcasts, and thinking about our past conversations and thinking about your audience. And we're always going to walk into this room today, and we're either taking it to positive or negative.
Mhm.
Because if people think, well, no, there's really no difference when I walk in the room. It's impermanence. We're always changing, right? So, however you're showing up is going to shift your relationship with that person in every interaction. When you walk into that room, and we're always going neutral to positive, neutral to negative. And just think before you open up that next door, where am I taking this room?
Mhm. Absolutely. Okay, so you mentioned being a leader in manufacturing. So what is your background?
I ran manufacturing plants for 25 years, had some background in logistics, but moved around from engineering and materials and production, and just really made a lot of mistakes. Like, because I was that person that I wanted to progress through the career, and then just started realizing that I was getting in my own way, and through some great coaches from externally and internally, and some great development, started seeing that, oh yeah, I'm really the one that needs to get better here. And emotional intelligence, 2.0, Travis Bradberry, that was
Mhm.
one of the first EI books that I got into, and then just got really obsessed with the fact of, oh, this is a skill. Okay, so I feel like I'm born as a good guy. That doesn't make me a great leader.
Right?
So really started learning a lot of that whole how we're showing up, and started diving deeper into that, started writing more, started speaking more about it, and then just went off on my own in 2016, and been helping manufacturers since.
That is awesome. So what is it now that really jazzes you about what you do?
When you you can see someone changing their behavior on a regular basis, right? Because they're seeing like, oh my gosh, I tried that and it worked. Like I can actually go and change someone's life just by how I'm coaching them. So when I'm coaching someone, and then they're saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to try this differently. So for example, uh, got some people that don't want change in their plant, right? We're changing. I don't think any small
No.
businesses have that problem.
Everybody loves change.
So just a simple question that one of my clients came up with is like, what are your apprehensions? Like, let's just talk about that. Like, what's what's the risk of something happening here? I want to know, like, I get it. You're frustrated that we're changing, but where's that coming from? Like, let's just go a level deeper. Because if I can understand where that's coming from, maybe I'm missing something. Like maybe we shouldn't be doing this change. I don't know. Because if you're apprehensive and I know you care, then where's the disconnect between you and I? And
Right.
maybe that I'm wrong. I don't know until we go deeper to understand what you're thinking.
How do you get somebody to go deeper? Especially the type A's.
Well, I mean, just simple skill that I use a lot is these open-ended versus close-ended questions. Right? So if you're a close-ended question is when you're going to answer to a yes or a no. Like, do you want to move forward with this change? Okay, that's a yes or no. But if you could say something more open-ended using how or what, like, how would this change be great for you? Right? Or what would make this change not as painful as it seems to be today? Right. Or what's the alternative of not changing here? What's the risk? And just kind of like just having those open-ended questions and just pushing it through a little bit. And it's kind of like, and the humility, right? Of this isn't about me getting you to change your mind about this outcome. This is about me actually being curious. And I really want to know and I want to learn from you because I know that you have good intentions. And if you take that back a step further, is sometimes I take this for granted with the relationships that we have. You need to have that relationship first.
Mm,
So going deep with someone that doesn't really feel that they know you, or more importantly, can't trust you, you're not going to be able to get deep. And sometimes we forget that whole foundation of that. If you haven't put in the time to get to know the person, then they don't care what you know until they know how much you care. So it's kind of like if you got that type A and you're just not getting that deepness, it's kind of like. And I had a client that had that exact same situation, and he just kind of went in with like, "Are we okay, you and I?" And that's not like an everyday question, but under the
right.
right context, like sometimes there's something underlying there where a person doesn't want to go deep. And can't believe this, Christy, but I've actually made some people upset and I didn't know it. And I was doing it quite often. So it's like once I started asking that, it's kind of like, oh, okay. So that's off-putting when I'm just a fan of just like asking a lot more questions and just taking it on the chin a little bit more of kind of like, what, I'm not so much fixated on your behavior. I'm more curious on my own and how that's impacting on how you're doing.
I do that a lot as an after action, like, especially in, um, I've talked with you about the chamber, I'm on the back on the board.
Yeah.
If I'm in any committees or board meetings or whatever, it doesn't matter. If I feel at any point that I am taking over the room, because I
Mm.
have big energy, because it can happen naturally, I don't think I'm able to laugh at that myself, but until, nobody's laughing.
Hey, superheroes have that effect.
But I always want to make sure that I know where the line is to not be offensive.
Hmm.
In first of all, have I taken up too much time? Am
Hmm.
I on point in the conversation? Am I helping to guide it somewhere? Like all of this is running through my head while I'm talking.
Mm.
And then I'm going back to the leader of the table going, if I talk too much, you need to like give me a signal. Like, don't let me talk that much. And they're like, oh, you're fine. I'm like, that kind of gives me I go in a little bit of, I will I will play the puppy, I like, can I have permission for this? Did I do okay? Sorry. Like I do
Yeah.
that and they're like, "Oh, you're so fine. You said what we needed to hear, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay, I just want to make sure
Hmm.
because I want to know where I want to know where everybody is emotionally in the room
Yeah.
so that I'm not manipulative but very aware of the I don't know, it's like this internal emotional scorecard. Am I winning with people or am I losing
Yeah.
this right now?
Absolutely. That's a great conscious to have.
It's tiring, but I will totally ask all the time, "Did I do okay with that? Did I do like what was this? What was that?" And they're like, "Why do you overthink things?" But you just said it. Like it's that internal I want to be better.
Hmm.
It's not that I think I did bad. I just want to do better. I want to
Hmm.
show up better. So what about those frontline leaders? How well are they receptive in manufacturing to these kinds of things? Top leaders in any organization, typically the top leaders are the ones that gravitate to getting the coaching
Hmm.
and the training and all the fancy stuff.
Hmm.
But sometimes that activity doesn't get to go all the way to
Hmm.
frontline. So how does it get received on the front line in manufacturing?
I think it goes back to that skill of coaching, where naturally the people at the top are going to get the most amount of training, is what you're
Mhm.
alluding to, right?
Yeah.
And then that individual coaching. And I'm actually working with someone right now, and we're doing one-on-one coaching with the senior leaders. And a lot of the intent is that they can coach better their own leaders. So now you've experienced coaching, and really it's actually building the muscle within the organization of coaching, right? So more dialogue,
Right.
better questions. It's like anything else. You got to put in the reps, right? So the more questions that you're asking, the better you'll get at asking those questions. And then uh, because for the frontline leadership, I mean, this is what you always hear that needs a lot of help. And but if the supervisors have the skill of coaching, they can help accelerate that, because the ability to learn and absorb these skills, it gets harder as you transcend through the organization. Because I got the privilege of coaching some uh, shop floor supervisors that have never had coaching, and oh my gosh, so much fun, right? Because they're you're asking them the questions. It took the first couple times to get them understanding like how to
Yeah.
show up. You got to bring up, you got to come prepared with maybe something you've been struggling on. We'll talk through that in the coaching, and then once you kind of get the hang of it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like I didn't think about that, and it was already in my own mind. Like, because I'd be careful, don't give your own ideas to them because they're going to try it and it's not going to go well. But it's in them already. They're just not
Yeah.
thinking of applying it. And when they come back, it's exciting, because they're more open to try. So it's being that intentionality of, hey, what is our culture, is our behaviors.
Hmm.
So if we can be more conscious of, am I emulating those behaviors to the culture of the organization? And does that match my own values? And again, it comes back to that dialogue, talking about it at the pre-shift meeting. Hey, we got a scenario with a team member here. Hey, let's talk this through, how we're going to handle this, right? So how we're going to show kind of respect through this process. So yeah, it still comes back to start at the top, emulate that behavior, make sure we're skilled up there, and those frontline leaders will come in line.
I I'm fascinated that even in manufacturing, right? Because it seems to be like such a forgotten how to build people up.
Mhm.
You're just there to do this repetitive job, right? And then
Yeah.
go home. It's home to work. And some people thrive on that because they're just there to make the pay and then go home and play for the weekend. But the way that you're talking, I'm like, there's still humans running these things, and human beings have all of this inside of us, things that we maybe blocked. Like, why are we not showing up in a good mood in every single day? Like,
Mhm.
why can't we have a joyful atmosphere? Why can't, like, when you're noticing these kinds of things, and that as an emotional being, which humans are, you're bringing that even to a repetitive task kind of day.
Yes.
And when you can hack that
Mhm.
to make the whole business better, like, the whole business becomes this amazing brand that is pioneering into new lands. I don't know, something inspirational I'm sure would come out of that, but manufacturing gets the short end of the stick, I think, as an industry when it comes to the rah-rahs, the motivation, the how do we make our people better, not just the product. And I love that you're focused on making the people better. They will make products better.
Yeah. Yeah, and there, at one point I had written on my whiteboard, leave your emotions at the door. We have work to do. And I should have said, Trevor lacks the skill to unpack what's really going on. So we're just going to hammer through the day, right? And it's just like get her done attitude. And it's kind of like, once I started realizing that emotions are data, right? It's important information. And we kind of try to keep our self-confidence up by saying that's not that important. Like I'm just going to get it done. And really it is that lack of self-confidence, and the only way to do that is to say, hey, you know what, I'm not that good at this, and I could probably find someone in my organization that is, and have a conversation with them. Who's someone in your organization today that you're listening, that maybe does something well to build connection, that you can have a conversation with them about. And it's just kind of like bringing that whole site and awareness, because it's humbling when you look at you, our time goes by so quickly. And
Right.
it's like, are we showing up with that curiosity about ourselves? And then having some conversations around it. And it's relieving and it's not monotonous.
So you mentioned earlier by getting your own coaches and other people that have helped you along.
Mhm.
So who's had a lot of influence over you over the course of your development journey?
Well, we were building a plant in Toronto, and it was a small team already at that point because it was just in launch. And so we had a coach, Brian Scarrett. He's from Guelph, Ontario, where I grew up, just about an hour from him. And so he was the coach slash facilitator with this new team, new plant. It was 500,000 square foot. We're building frames for the Dodge Durango and engine cradles, and very exciting. And so he came in and did some coaching with us. And then he says, okay, so this is in year 2000. And he says, everybody put your hands on your knees. I want you to close your eyes. I just want you to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, really? Like we're building a plant right now and we're doing breathing exercises? And I'm kind of looking around at some of the guys. and and then so anyway, so kind of get back to the regular stuff. I'm like, okay, that was interesting. I guess that's called mindfulness. And meditation. And back it was, it's 15 years later, I reconnected with him, and he ended up really being a great mentor. And kind of me starting my business, it's kind of like, Brian, you were what I needed. I just wasn't ready. And I think just that whole keeping grounded of staying present. And I do now. I'll be almost at my 1,000 days at Headspace of doing meditation. Now I'm anchored in it, and I can't do without it. And I don't know why, but I just couldn't connect to it then. And but hey, they say, when's the best time to plant a tree is today. So it was that was around when I started my business. So yeah, it was great having his influence of that calmness.
Nice. So along the same lines, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So my first job actually was at the Ford Motor Company in St. Thomas, Ontario, where they built Crown Vics and Grand Marquis, the old cop cars,
Wow.
the taxi cabs. And so I was fortunate enough to get this job coming out of university. And we're on site, and we were TNT Logistics. It was a third party, but we were basically brought their inventory of trucks down from 100 a day to like 10 a day on the ground. And we brought seats in from the supplier just down the road, and then we were responsible for bringing them all in. And this man who's running this plant, Tom, he's stomping his foot as he's talking to me because he's so angry at 11 o'clock at night that these seats are rattling down here. And I just thought the man was going to eat me up alive. And it actually reminds me of what you said earlier about Maya Angelou, is that people don't remember what you said. They don't remember what you did, but they always remember how you made them feel. So I'm going through this, another huge event. So my boss sits me down the next week, and he says, you know, the, what did you do to prevent that or whatever? I'm like, well, the seat supplier was behind and the shunt driver this. And he's kind of like, the stress that we have in life are for the moments we don't prepare for. And it's kind of like, it's always kind of stuck with me. And every time I get like really stressed out, like, oh my gosh, I told Christy I was going to be there at 12:30, and like, should I bring my mic or not? And it's kind of like, that's just me. If I would have thought about that an hour before. And so much of what we worry about is self-induced.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And whether it's the stories we create in our own head, or if it's just the fact of going to back what Jim said, right? I could have done many different options that night. And I was kind of waiting to see what would happen, kind of hoping that we would catch up. But there was alternatives. And when you really step back in life, it's like, okay, Trevor, you plan to do 25 things today, and it was never possible. So if you're frustrated on your progress, it's your own
Here's your own.
mindset. So that's one of the big ones for me.
So as a fellow speaker, we are around a ton of other people. So who are some other people out there that may inspire you, like you gravitate to, or like, oh my God, I just love what that person says, or what other mentors do you have out there?
Well, I think the person that probably brought a lot of us together, Jeff Nally,
Yes.
uh, I just saw him at the NSA Thrive event last weekend. But he's been instrumental for me moving here into Louisville. And it kind of comes back to that whole networking aspect. Um, you I met Jeff because I went to a coaching conference that Brian, my mentor, suggested I go to, and it was a lot of money down to Florida. I go down there, I meet Brian Haupt,
Yeah.
and he's from Louisville. It's the first time I met
Yeah.
him here. So he's been, now him and I have been in a mastermind for 4 years. He takes me to a coaching conference in Cincinnati. I meet Jeff Nally. I said, Jeff, how are you getting paid to speak like that, man? You sound so good. Well, it's the National Speakers Association. So I think that it's funny how one mentor kind of pulls into another, and there's a connection of three right there, of three people that I really respect and have learned so much from.
And if people would just notice, like what you just said is making those mentor connections, it can happen within an organization if everybody is aligned from what, how did you say it? Top to shop?
Top the shop floor, right? I connect with top of the shop floor. If everyone's kind of aligned and we're working together, like they do at the St. Matthew's Chamber of Commerce.
Absolutely. All right, Trevor, one last question for you. What does success look like for you?
Showing up each day with my own curiosity of like just getting a little bit better each day, because I kind of go back to that whole, we're going from positive to negative, we're never neutral, this whole impermanence, maybe because I've been meditating for 967 days in a row. But I think for me it's really like every person I meet, I want to learn something from them, right? And I want to give before I take. And I think that's that whole success is that I love that saying, we're trying our best. And, there gets some pushback on that saying sometimes, but I believe people are. And maybe they're stuck mentally somewhere where they maybe need a little bit of a lift up or whatever. And I think if that keeps me grounded of staying out of judgment mode, looking at myself and what I kind of get better at. That's what kind of like keeps me even sometimes when I wake up in the morning, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I got so much to do today. Where do I start? But it's kind of like, okay, you know what? You can do this. It's going to be a great day. And starting each day, I usually take a cold shower after my warm one. And then I just say, it's going to be a great day, because every day can be a great day.
Oh, I love that. Well, Trevor, thank you so much for being my guest on this
Thanks for
episode.
having me, Christy.
Absolutely. Yay. Great. Well, again, thank you. I hope you have lots of success in the upcoming years for your own business as well. And I love that from top to shop floor. Get it aligned, have dialogue. Go for it, people.
Thank you so much.
See, we just have shared energy about people development, and it's so much fun for me to sit and talk to somebody who is kind of in the same space as me. Now, Trevor's business is called Operations Kickstart, and I know that he's got some plans that is going to be developing his own business and his own brand and sub project branding underneath of that. And I'm just excited to see what he's going to be doing for his own business in the future. So be on the lookout if you are in manufacturing and you're like, I need to connect my top leadership to that all the way to the shop floor, you need to reach out to Trevor. He's going to be your guy for that. He knows the language, he loves the people, he loves the industry. Reach out to Trevor. I was there's just so much about being able to spend time with him. He's such a great guy, got great energy, and just that concept of really diving into the human side of manufacturing is a big deal. And I was very, very honored and excited to get to bring that to you guys in this interview. Thank you so much to you, my listeners, my watchers. If you're not following us on, you can subscribe on YouTube, go to the website. You can find all of the past episodes on the website. You can choose your listening preference as well. We can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google, yada 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 yada. There's so many different things out there, and we're on a bunch of them. So follow us to get notified for the next episodes. We're going to be coming up with some additional things ourselves. And by the way, just a little, I'm putting this out there to the universe. If anybody has a connection with Ryan Reynolds, as a business owner, I would love to interview him as a business owner. How much fun would that be to have somebody like Ryan Reynolds on this show or even Jessica Alba? Man, that girl has rocked it in business as well. Would love to have Mayim Bialik. She has a production studio. Like, I would love to have those people who've walked both sides of that coin, but they're not coming from necessarily corporate, but that entertainment, like, they have everybody knows them, but they don't know this side of them. I would love to be the one to get to show this side of them. Just putting that out into the universe. We'll see what happens. Anybody got any connections? Let me know. In the meantime, stay tuned for the next episode of Small Business Success Talk. I've been your host, Christy Smallwood, and it's been a super exciting episode as usual. See you again next time.